Today's guests are two people who have helped shape the childhoods and futures of thousands of kids and families. Jay and Mindy Jacobs are the longtime directors of Timberlake Camp, one of the most respected summer camps in the country, where they've spent decades building not just a program, but a culture rooted in belonging, growth, and joy. Beyond Timberlake, they are the owners and operators of multiple camps, trusted leaders in the camping world, and the driving force behind Scope. Jay and Mindy have turned camp into a platform for leadership, purpose, and real impact. Welcome to Disrupt for Good. All right, guys, I'm so excited and thrilled to have both Jay and Mindy Jacobs here today from Camp Timberlake. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. It's such a pleasure.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's good to see you again, Dill.
Good to see you too. Although I didn't go to Camp Timberlake, I feel like partly I did because of my sister. I've been visiting there for a couple of years now, so I feel like I have been part of that journey now for some time. So thank you for coming on today. So let's start. Camps change as generations change. What's something Timberlake does today that would have surprised you 20 or 30 years ago?
Man, why don't you take that?
All right. So one of the things that came to mind was the amount of videos and pictures available to parents. So I think 20 to 30 years ago, we would never fathom that we would hire something like 6 or 7 photographers that really capture each and every child as often as we can.
Yeah, I'm sure that's something that you have had to grow that department year after year now.
Yeah.
And now I know that there's that app now where it kind of spots your child.
Yeah.
That is so remarkable because usually you have to find your child, spot that child in that picture. And I know parents will stay up till like midnight to try and find their kid and catch that photo.
It's the refresh, and then it's also keeping track, a log, as how many pictures are shown, so it's equitable, that no one feels like someone's being photographed more often than others. So it's become a bit of a task that certainly wasn't there 20 or 30 years ago.
Yeah, that's really cool. And any other things that you guys have added onto the camp? Now I know that with technology, there's some cool things that you probably have had to, advance or continue to modernize within the camp environment. Is there something else that, you've had to keep up with or keep up to date as time progresses?
So much has changed, over the years. Timberlake has advanced like all camps. We put a lot into the camp. Now we've got a turf football field. We hadn't thought of that years ago. A buffet in our dining room. We used to serve family style. And you used to have one substitute, and substitute used to be what we served yesterday. So now, of course, you've got a whole array of choices and options because campers have become pickier eaters. And,
Right.
and of course, you've got allergies and other issues that get into the equation. So you've got to be very specialized and individualized in your service provision.
Absolutely. Yeah, and also with allergies, I'm sure, with gluten-free, vegetarian, vegan, I'm sure you have to now accommodate with everything like that as well.
Mhm. And I think also what's changed is the technology being connected via Wi-Fi, and we don't have cell service that comes into the camp, but having the mechanisms and things in place that were accessible all the time. It used to be, again, back in the day, parents would call, they'd get a message, they'd bring it up to the meal. Either the message was brought to Jay or to me if it was boys' side, girls' side, or whatever was important to address at that time. And now it's ding, email. So, you're always on, as we are on in various ways throughout the day, but now technology has really anchored us to, be available with an iPad around or whatnot.
Yeah, and I know that now parents are now communicating with some of their kids via email instead of letters and stuff like that, which is sometimes pretty cool. So it's instantaneous instead of waiting for a couple of days to hit the mailbox and so forth.
That's true. Yeah, the one-way emails. Yeah, every day.
Yes. Or it's hard to keep up with as well for your staff in the main office. Timberlake families are fiercely loyal. I've seen it firsthand. I know that they've been involved with helping you guys build, I believe, a hotel or an inn. In your view, what actually keeps campers coming back year after year?
I think the main thing is their friends. I think they come back for the friendships they make. I think they enjoy the traditions, the excitement, the spirit of Timberlake is unique. I mean, it's an exciting camp, and it's exciting every single day. The program is rebuilt every year, so there's something new. You don't just replay the year after year after year. So campers come back because they know there's going to be something more exciting down the path. So you've got that, and of course, our starfish values, what we're trying to get across to campers in terms of character development. I think all helps, with our mission, which is to teach children the skills of making and keeping friends while building their self-esteem, self-confidence, and resilience. So those things, I think, packaged together, get campers coming back again and again.
And just to add on that, from the parental point of view, being fiercely loyal, I think they trust us and they know we're hands-on and we're all in, and the campers and what their needs are come first and foremost.
Absolutely. And I feel like, in a way, would you say your campers look at you as parental figures as well, like that as well over the summer? I think that's
Yes.
very important, to have that type of connection and
We'd
bond.
like, we'd like to think so, and
Yeah.
that's how
Grandparents now, though.
yeah, that's how we interact with the
Yeah.
campers. I mean, they know us. We're on the campus. Our home is built right in the middle of camp. Not we don't go away. We're there. We're immersed in camp, and we like it that way.
And I think our goal is that every child comes away feeling that Timberlake is their summer home. So they come back to a place they're familiar, we're familiar, they have these great memories, and as Jay pointed out initially, their connections. And that is what keeps you together and what makes camp incredibly impactful and valuable to each individual.
Absolutely. And I've heard now from some of your campers as well that there's a waiting list. Is that accurate?
Yeah, no, there are age groups that are closed. It's just you can't get in.
Yeah.
So, parents tend to be coming up to camp with their children the summer before, going to one of our rookie days or on tour, and that's how we do most of our enrolling now.
Yeah, so parents typically plan almost a year ahead, but not exclusively. And we don't want people to be pressured into making a decision. It has to be right for them.
Right. And how do those rookie days typically look to help parents kind of ease their way to make that decision and help them kind of feel at ease?
Well, it's really the children because a parent's going to feel comfortable sending their child to camp if their child really enjoys the experience. And so the camper visit to camp and spending a day doing activity, meeting some of the staff, meeting some other campers. They get comfortable. They enjoy the experience. At the end of a successful rookie day, anyway, you've got a lot of campers telling their parents they want to go here. So that I think makes it a lot easier for the parents to send them.
And then they get to meet other campers who are potentially coming, and they join in with our current campers. So they get the vibe. They get to feel the vibe that goes on there.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's great. I have heard from previous campers now that you guys have switched to part uniform, if that's correct. What made you choose to transition to that phase at Camp Timberlake?
We're mainly uniform. I mean, after dinner, you don't have to wear a camp uniform, but during the day you do. And I think that takes away the competition for a lot of campers as to what to wear, how fancy the clothing should be or not be. Everything is Timberlake. It also adds to the camp spirit. It gives a sense of community. I think it makes it easier for parents shopping and preparing for camp because you know what to buy. And tell you the truth, it takes a lot of the pressure off. When the campers get up every morning, what are they putting on? You're putting on a Timberlake sweatshirt. It's cold out there. So, that's kind of the reasoning behind it. And I think it's worked out very well for us.
Yeah, I call it grab and go. You wake up and you just grab what you need and you go.
Have you noticed that campers are bringing less to camp prior to other summers? I've, seen other campers from other camps and even at Timberlake, probably you've seen yourselves, bring an excess amount of clothing and materials and supplies with them to camp. So have you seen that adjustment over the summers that you've now
But we do
implemented?
limit it, so we limit how much they can bring, and space is, of course, limited. Do their parents tend to overpack? Yes, but we do limit how much, and it does make it easier for the parents and less stressful because they know right away what they have to pack. And then, as we say, anything that forgotten could be sent up if it's a necessity. And of course, there's visiting day.
Yes. And with visiting day, I have to say I've witnessed
You were
the
there?
insanity of how visiting day usually goes. They call it the running of the Jews, they call it all these things. I have to say, after COVID, though, I noticed that some camps were also implementing new policies where they have the one bag, thing, which I think is great. I believe Timberlake does that as well.
Yes.
We dive into that philosophy as well because I do think that that's a new way of thinking versus the old way of thinking where people would typically bring also an excess amount of food and belongings for their children to fill up an entire bed or a whole year's worth of food.
Yeah, well, what we did in the old days, we would throw out an awful lot. We still do,
Mhm.
and it's still too much. But it is one bag. We give the bag to the parents, so that's what you can fill for each child, and it's more than enough. And remember something: they're supposed to share it with their bunkmates, over a day or two, and then visiting days is Saturday. Monday morning, we go around trick or treating, we call it, and we take everything and throw it out. Of course, campers try to hide the stuff, and we look to find the
Yeah,
stuff. It has
fine.
to, yeah. But you don't need
Yeah.
all that stuff. And I have to tell you something. Parents have to think about it because I've got kids every visiting day who get sick
Yeah.
afterwards. From eating too much. They
Yeah.
gorge themselves on the stuff their parents brought.
Yeah.
So we try to cut it down. It has been successful, not as successful as I'd like, and we just keep pushing. We'll get there.
Yeah, that makes
Less
sense.
more.
I completely agree. I think it's overwhelming. I think it's a lot for the kids. And I mean, I think that they find it like it's the last hurrah for them for their entire lives. But honestly, they'll go home and 3 weeks later and they can eat all they want to their heart's
Yeah.
content.
And believe it or not, even though they're disappointed because they know that the food will be taken away, they're actually happier because they're no longer hiding or trying to eat it. And as Jay said, they don't, some of them get sick from it. So we have to monitor all that. So we're happy when Monday morning comes around, we get to clean up and we get to reorganize.
Yeah, and it's I'm sure also a little uncleanly is the word, I guess, to keep all that food in the box.
Yeah.
So I get it. How do you maintain distinct identities across different camps while keeping your leadership philosophy consistent? I know you guys do own a bunch of different camps across the board, but how do you maintain that different identity and uniqueness
Well,
across?
each camp has its own personality, and that's kind of driven from the directors of those camps. We're only at Timberlake, although all winter long we're here in the same office and we go over all of the things and make all of our plans together. We share the same mission. What our mission is at Timberlake is the same mission in each of our camps. The Starfish program that we'll talk about, I suspect later, is the same in each of our camps. So there's unanimity in the character and values character education and values that we're trying to get across to campers. So there are a lot of commonalities, but when it comes down to it, even though many of the traditions may be the same as well, each camp has its own version of a color war. We call ours marathon. But again, I think the personality of where the camp has been and how it's evolved, who the directors are, what their personal style is, and the staffs that they hire, each give a uniqueness to each of the properties, while at the same time the core values the importance of maintaining the quality, the excellence, and again the overall value of the experience, I think, is something that we all hold on to. And we spend the winter time having conversations about that.
Yeah. And our programs are not identical, and our traditions are not identical. And each of those camps have their own unique, which makes it special to them, what they have done year after year, which also the campers and staff love to have those traditions to look forward to.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think that it's great that you found, I don't know how you did, but you found incredible directors to lead those camps, and that you trust them to lead those camps as well, because it's really important to have that relationship as well.
It's true. I mean, and they're also friends, so that
Yeah,
also makes it a little easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
absolutely. Scope has changed thousands of lives. For anyone in our audience who may not be familiar, can you explain what Scope does and why access to summer camp is so transformative for the kids and families you serve?
Well, SCOPE stands for Summer Camp Opportunities Promote Education. And I think it's very true because, you get academic education through the school system, but this is a different type of experience and it's social. And campers whose parents can afford it and who understand camp send their children to camp. And that's a great thing. But there are so many children in communities that are not as privileged as some of the ones that we serve at our camps that do not have the experience of camp. And what camp does is as I said, it builds self-confidence, independence, resilience, promotes your self-esteem. The whole idea came about back in 1991. I was at a camp conference, and we were talking about, on the one hand, some of the violence that was going on in the city of New York, particularly in the Bronx. There were shootings and the like during the summers. The fact that we were also discussing that not-for-profit camps were seeing a lack of funding and were going out of business. We were losing not-for-profit beds. And camp at the same time, we were talking about the value of it, and we decided that we needed some program to raise money to send inner city kids to camp. And we did it on the basis of not, a test of any sort other than, of course, income, but the fact that we wanted to make sure that we took children that would just stay in school. That was the whole underlying basis. If you stay in school, we'll give you a summer at camp. And that's what we did. And once you went to camp, we wanted children to return to camp because the more time they spent there, the better they came. And the outcomes really speak for themselves. They're excellent.
That's
And
wonderful.
and most of the camping organization is behind it because as camp directors and our colleagues all believe in the value and the impact camp can make. So now it's expanded. I don't know what the numbers are, but
Here we've got,
we raise millions of dollars.
yeah.
Wonderful. And do you also see a difference? Because I would say so that a lot of the campers that go to your camps across the board are extremely privileged, and I feel as though they don't immerse themselves with some other people from other backgrounds as well. So would you say as well that they are in a way immersing themselves with other people from other backgrounds as well, which I think is great.
I think what really moves both Mindy and I very much is when we see our campers independently raising money, organizing events and activities to promote Scope and get other children that can't afford it an ability to go to camp. We see this with our campers all the time. And by the way, in other camps that are now participating and see the same thing. So I think that's very motivating. On the one hand, we're proud of our campers who do that. It's something, we talk about in camp, and it's good to see the buy-in from campers as well as camp parents.
Yeah, no, it speaks volumes to the fact that the kids at camp appreciate and love camp so much, and that is something that they want to focus and put their efforts towards, but also the fact that they recognize that it's something that is important to put their efforts towards in general.
Through our Starfish program, we talk a lot about appreciation and gratitude and how they should appreciate and thank their families that they got this opportunity. So that's something that we talk about constantly, that kids really are grounded about it and fully understand that not all children get to camps like they're going to.
Absolutely. No, it's such a privilege to really be able to go to such an amazing camp. So really is something that people need to be appreciative of. So that's wonderful you guys recognize that and share that with your campers. What was the moment when you realized access to camp wasn't equal and something had to be done? I guess you already shared that, being that it was already handled in the 90s. So we can continue. What's a camper story from Scope that still sticks with you?
I have one. It was one of our first dinners, and a few campers were invited up to speak. And this little boy stood up there, and I'll never forget it. He was talking about his experience that he had at this camp, and he said the comment, it was the first time that he ran barefoot in grass, and that really struck me, that it was the first time he was able to take off his sneakers or shoes to run barefoot and not step on glass and not worry and to catch frogs. And that has to be what, 25 years ago?
Yeah.
That stood there and tears just came. I mean, everyone was just like awestruck.
It's 35 years
Oh,
ago.
35 years
30
ago.
oh, yeah.
Years are just rolling by. But it was something that stuck with me that you never realize. And you just know what you know. And
Absolutely.
to hear that was, for me personally, was very impactful.
100%. Yeah, that's a great story.
I took a ride with Doug Pierce, who was the director of Pierce Day Camp, and he was uh, integrally involved in Scope in its earliest years, co-founding Scope. And we took a ride. We had a driver take us to Rosa Escoto's school. She was the principal of a school in Brooklyn that was going to be a pilot program school for Scope. And I remember, we talked all the way there, and we got into Brooklyn, and we were stopped at a traffic light a few blocks from the school. And I saw this mother waiting at the light, waiting to cross with her two children, two young girls, both dressed in these beautiful flowing yellow dresses. And I mentioned to Doug, I said to him, wouldn't it be great if these are two kids that can end up going to the program that we were going to that school to talk about at an with an auditorium full of these kids. Later, we pulled up at the school. They gave us a tour. We sat on the stage as the Scope program was introduced, and I looked out, and those two little girls in yellow with those yellow dresses were sitting there. And I just always think of all the kids like them that now get to experience something that was just not possible before Scope got going. And I think that moved me because you could see it in real life that, here were lives that you're going to be able to change for the better because of a program that we were all a part of.
Yeah, it's really creating such a meaningful and amazing impact. So I love that story. And I love, Mindy, your story as well. It's so amazing. I could listen to all these stories all day long. So it's such an amazing, positive impact that Scope is making out there in the world. So I'm sure all kids would benefit from any opportunity they can have in going to camp. So it's great. I want to take a turn and hear about how you both got into the position that you are in with directing and running Camp Timberlake and being in the camping industry. I would love to hear that story.
Well, I went to camp. This will be my 60th summer at Timberlake. I went to camp as a camper there at Timberlake. I had been to two other camps prior to Timberlake, and I worked at Timberlake, and I always wanted to buy it. From the day I got there and saw it, I was 11 years old when I got there, and I have to tell you that I always say dreams do come true because in 1979, the owner of the camp wanted to sell it. I was going into my last year of law school. I talked to him. He liked me. And for virtually nothing down, he turned the camp over to me, and I just paid him off over a number of years. Of course, Timberlake wasn't the camp that it is now, but it still sat on a beautiful piece of property. And that's how I got started. About a year later, and Mindy can fill in, but Mindy, who had been a camper at the camp for two different summers, came back to work at the camp, and that's how we met.
That's it. Yeah.
That's it. That's the story. There you
In
go.
the 70s. Yeah. I was lucky enough. We both grew up in Queens. So
Mhm.
not a lot of my friends where I grew up in Bayside went to sleepaway camp. And my parents had a friend who worked at the camp, and she was girls director. Her name was Ann Feinzig. And she encouraged my parents, who really couldn't afford to send me, to send my brother and I. And my brother and I went for a couple of years. I took some time off, worked different jobs, and then after I graduated from college, my father in particular said, "Why don't you go back to camp?" And I thought, and I loved camp. I loved Timberlake. I felt very lucky to have had the experience. And I never thought about working there. He kind of nudged me into it. And then Ann was still there. And Ann at that point was Jay's partner. And it was a little bit of a matchmake between my dad and Ann. They really saw the future for us. So that's how it got started. And then 1981 was the year that I came back to work.
And is that how you both kind of met and like started your relationship as well?
That's
After
correct.
the summer.
After
Yeah,
the
pretty much. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's such an amazing story. I
Yeah.
love that. That's great. That's a really great story. So I basically feel like this was like destined to happen, basically from that story. I love it. Dreams do come true.
Mhm.
If someone is listening and thinking, going back to scope for a second, I just wanted to take a pivot for a second. If someone is listening and thinking, I want to help, but I don't know how, what's the best first step?
Well, you can reach out to Scope and you go to the website and it's scopeusa.org. So it's scopeusa.org. And you'll have every way right through the website to donate if you like, or get it volunteer, or whatever it is that you want. And I'd recommend they do that.
Absolutely. I'm sure someone that is listening would love to be a part of it in some way, shape, or form. So thank you guys for sharing all of that information.
Yeah, if you love camp and you've been to camp and you had a great experience yourself, I think sharing it with others who couldn't otherwise get it is a great thing to do. And so the Scope gives you the vehicle to get that done.
Absolutely. So you've worked together as partners for decades. How do you divide roles, make decisions, and handle disagreement, being that you've worked together throughout the year and over the summer as well?
Min, why don't you take it?
Oh, so we thought immense. I don't know. So I focus primarily my attention during the summer on the girls' campus because girls are very unique to boys, different issues. And I always say, Jay, I work much harder than you do, but Jay oversees the entire running of the camp and oversees many decisions for our organization and particularly at Timberlake. So that's how we do that. During the winter, I would say I spend a lot of time speaking to all parents, as Jay does, but I do a lot of the inquiries and the follow-up and meeting with campers and supporting them in many, many ways. It's very personal when you send a child to camp and when we look at it as a true partnership with the family. So when life gets in the way and there's certain challenges, we're right there for them. We show up. So that's what we do, and that's a large part of my time. And then disagreements.
Oh, we never disagree.
Best
I
thing is to
couldn't remember
communicate.
one.
Yeah, right. Oh, yeah. No, I think communication is the
Mhm.
key, and sometimes you got to let your ego. You got to get over yourself. Sometimes I have to say to me, "Man, get over yourself," and you just have to don't sweat over the small stuff. And I think all the years that we're married, it's over 40 now, that we almost know how each other thinks. I always know what I could nudge him on and get him to agree to, and what I can't. What's a hard no? So.
Yeah, and I got the same. And I keep the knife drawer in the kitchen locked. So, that has saved me a number of times. But no, look, there'll be things I'll push, and I know, also how far to go and how far to push, and then we hash it out. But
Usually win.
well, I see. I disagree.
Well, if you went to law school, then I see that it makes sense why you have good negotiating skills.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah, you do have to negotiate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Well, that's great. I definitely see that, and it's a great partnership over there. For listeners who may not know, and we've been talking about it a little bit and hinting at it over the course of this episode, Can you explain what the Starfish program is at Timberlake Camp and why you felt it was important to create it?
Yeah, we did this about 30 years ago now, I would say, maybe a little bit more. But the STARFISH stands for sportsmanship, tolerance, appreciation, respect, friendship, integrity, sensitivity, and helpfulness. And those are the 8 values, if you will, that we are advocating and promoting at camp during the summer. And we look at them, a little bit differently, each of them. We have an event every Saturday night. I'll tell a short story, and then we'll give out recognitions for each of those to a boy and a girl for each of the Starfish values, and we'll explain why they got them. And it's all part of our Starfish program. But Starfish isn't just about that event, because throughout the day in camp, whether it's on an athletic field or how campers respond to their peers during a production, a dramatic production on stage. All of these values come into play, and we're continually reminding campers about them. And I find that we've got campers that graduate, leave camp, and still talk about Starfish and the benefits that the Starfish values have provided for them in their later life. It got started because I think reading an awful lot, we began to see that civility in this country and frankly the world was really taking a downturn, and the incidents of road rage, crazy behavior on airplanes. Even I was watching all of this you're talking about back in the 90s at some point. It just seemed to me that things were spiraling in the wrong direction, and that the moral teaching, the values that need to be promoted among children were really something that was abdicated by the schools. Parents didn't know how to deal with it the way that I felt that might be beneficial. So at camp, we said that'd be an important part of creating something special, something different, so that we were sending what I refer to as good citizens out into the world after they finished with camp. And I think we achieved that.
I just want to add, it's really the backbone of everything we do. And it sets the bar to what's expected on how to live in a community. So I think it's comforting that everybody knows where the bar is set and what's not. It's not very Starfish-like. So we have our own little unique chants within our camp that I think is helpful in creating a respectful, kind community. It's not easy to live as a group for 7 weeks, 24/7.
Trust
It's
me, I
tough.
know.
Yeah, you've been through it. So
Yeah.
it's a lot, and you build character, and you have to learn tolerance and appreciation and all those things that Jay just characterized what Starfish is about, that it really makes a difference for our staff and for our campers, and parents love it also because they'll tell us stories after camp. And the other thing I wanted to add, which I think makes it very unique, it's not that Jay and I picked the Starfish recipients. It's that fellow campers nominate something that was done to them, some act of kindness and something that they saw, or perhaps a staff member, but more often it's campers. And I think that is also what's very important to recognize. We're not just picking out who we think needs that Starfish. It's about that act of kindness or that whatever was done to receive it and a story about it, that it's from the campers, and it could be different age groups, it could be wherever, but it could be, kids in their own division, which really makes it very, very special. And everybody cheers on, and everybody really wants a Starfish. And I will say one other thing, when this was first worked on about 30 years ago, we weren't sure if the oldest kids were going to take to it, if they thought it was cringy or it wasn't cool, whatever. It was actually the complete opposite, that everybody wanted to be recognized for doing something right.
I love the camaraderie, and I think that it's such a great tool to have in camp to instill those values. And I think also not a lot of camps do have programs like this out there. And I think it's really special that the kids, took appreciation to it as well, because it's a lot of, camps that have programs out there where it's activities and all of that, and it's great. but also the fact that you're taking the time to acknowledge, those characteristics that, people are building out there to build good leaders and build great upstanding citizens and stuff like that. That's what some parents and kids are looking for at the end of the day when they're going to college and going out into the real world. So helping to really facilitate that in the camping world is great. So I think it's a wonderful thing that
Yeah,
you
and you have to remember something that, as Mindy was alluding to, kids aren't always kind. And you play basketball or some other sport, and kids say mean things in sports to each other. And frankly, it's promoted in some places. Trash talk and all of the other behaviors that you see. Even with the NCAA playing, you watch the audience sometimes. Well, if we're supposed to be building self-esteem and self-confidence and promoting friendship, that's our mission. If we're supposed to be doing that, you can't do that in an environment of nastiness on a playing field or court. So sportsmanship is very important. And tolerance means not tolerance just for different types of people, but tolerance even for different abilities or for people's behaviors and what have you. All of these things that we teach promote the mission of camp in the camp. But the best piece of it is what they take home. And I will tell you that I do believe, and I hear it from, as I said, parents and campers, what they take home is significant because they begin to understand the importance of actually practicing some of the things that we've been doing here at camp.
Yeah, and parents will say they see a difference in their kids.
I truly believe that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think also the fact that they're disconnecting from the world and having that ability to really stay in touch with that human connection and having that response to it is so incredible over the course of the summer. It's, I think, the best thing for someone at that age. So it's great. Looking ahead, what excites you most about the future of camping?
Well, with the introduction of AI and technology today, I think that the camp experience where campers are going to socialize, like I call it eyeball to eyeball rather than thumb to thumb, texting away. And they're going to have this human connection is so important. And I still believe that, alternate intelligence, whatever it is important. And artificial, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Artificial intelligence is
Whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
it's important. It's the future. It's great, but humanity is also important. And at camp, you get to practice a bit of humanity. And I think that I'm excited about what that offers. Mindy mentioned we don't get cell service up at camp, but you do get Wi-Fi. And we're glad you don't get cell service. Campers are off their phones. They're off the technology. They're compelled to deal with one another, talk with one another, and have those kinds of friendships and social experiences. That's really where, the relationships and all of that, that's really where life is and is going to be, into the future,
Yeah.
technology notwithstanding. So we're proud to be a part of that, and we're looking forward with excitement to what that looks like over the next few years.
Yeah. Robots can't live in a bunk, and robots can't make camp happen. So it's a real human touch. And when you say what excites us, excites me, we just had a reunion a couple of weeks ago with our youngest campers. Just seeing their faces, their excitement, their parents. Every summer is new to us. It's almost like it becomes our first summer. So we go in with that same excitement, that same dedication, that same willingness to make it happen. And that excites me. And then, of course, our leadership staff, their creativity, their new ideas, their energy. It's all good. The future looks bright.
By the way, robots can clean the toilets, and there are certain things that
I guess
they can do.
They could cut
So-
the tomatoes.
And
Yeah,
maybe
we're not against that.
right.
Yeah, of course not. I mean, I do think that camp is now more important than ever before for kids, and they're forgetting how to socialize, especially now after COVID. So it's really a wonderful thing that it exists and that kids are still so excited and thrilled to be a part of it.
And specifically, or especially for our teens who at first, the withdrawal right away of not having their phones, it takes them a little bit. And then a couple of days later, they are actually relieved that they don't have that social pressure to be on, to like something, to see a TikTok, to comment on something. They just could be in the moment with their friends, being busy and being back to nature and having fun and laughing and being
Yeah.
happy. It's like a beautiful thing. And as soon as they get home, it's all unraveled. So that's why you live 10 months for 2.
And that's why everyone is excited and wants to have that time over the summer to just be a kid and be a part of it, that experience. So it's wonderful. I call this part of our episode rapid fire. So we're just gonna go into 6 couple quick questions. What is one or maybe more camp traditions you'll never get rid of?
Starfish.
Color war.
Good answers. The hardest age group to manage?
Middle camp.
Eighth grade girls.
A rule you once hated but now swear by?
Mm.
I hated the rule that you couldn't raid on boys going over to girls' campus and girls over to boys' campus, because I used to enjoy hunting the raiders in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Can't do that anymore, so now I
Yeah.
swear by it. You can't do it.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, that's the one that came to mind.
Okay, that's a good one. Camp food item that never misses?
Pizza.
So,
Yeah, chicken tenders go over pretty well too.
yeah, and grilled cheese.
Yeah.
One word that defines Timberlake?
Spirit.
Yeah, I'd say fun.
Good answers. That was rapid fire. That was a great answers, and I enjoy that a lot. All right. Well, Jay and Mindy, thank you so much for coming on Disrupt for Good today. I enjoyed this so much. It was so great connecting with both of you again. And I'm so excited to sit on the sidelines this upcoming summer and watch camp happen from Instagram and TikTok and all the things. As a 22-year-old this summer, I'm still missing camp in some of the ways. So enjoy it for me. And thank you again for coming on the podcast today. It was really
Oh, you're
Thank
welcome.
you.
You made it fun. Thanks, Dylan. Best to your family.